I'm Nicolas Kopp, the CEO and founder of Rillet. We're building a next-gen AI native ERP. It's a big task, but we're up for it. And one mistake that I've done in the early days was very much about whether to hire functionally or for domain expertise and core expertise of teams.
Welcome back to How I Screwed This Up, where founders share the biggest mistakes they made on the road to building a company and the hard-won lessons that followed. I'm your host, Sarah Hallam, and I run startup content here at Rippling. For today's episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Nicolas Kopp, the CEO and founder of Rillet, to the show. Nicolas is building a next-gen AI-native ERP, tackling one of the most entrenched software categories in business. His hiring philosophy was pretty contrarian. He prioritizes domain expertise above all else. This means when he was building out the team early on, he prioritized those who deeply understood his customer pain points, in this case accountants, and believed that he could train them into any role he needed to fill. He started hiring accountants for everything, from product to sales to customer success, but Nicolas had overlooked one crucial detail when it came to onboarding these folks: time. In today's episode, listen to Nicolas recount the implications of this mistake, as well as how he refined his approach into a framework that can tell founders when to hire for domain expertise versus proven skills. He also shares some wonderful tactics on how to make sure domain experts you do hire are set up for success. Founders, prepare for an episode that goes beyond conventional wisdom of just hiring for culture fit. Let's dive in.
So we started Rillet in 2021, first sort of a bootstrap, just my co-founder and I, quietly building away. And I think the first person that joined us was either last day of August or first day of September in 2021, first engineering hire. Our approach to hiring was very much focused on core domain expertise. So what that means very specifically, we're building an accounting software for the mid-market. So it's very complex accounting workflows, finance workflows, and what we always prioritized were people that actually had the underlying expertise of dealing with these systems that came from the profession, accounting profession themselves, and indexed very much there versus on, for example, like the traditional backgrounds of product management or like traditional backgrounds of sales or product marketing. So very much indexed on people that were actually buyers and users of platforms like the ones we're building. I think when you start a company, you always go to first principles. And if you throw everything out that you've learned, that I was at a tech business before that was fairly successful in fintech, and which you kind of still need to throw out everything that you've learned and seen be successful and successfully applied in a domain. And so what we went back to was just a core principle of maximum empathy with the end customer and who's basically using that platform. What does their workday every day look like? Like they sit in front of a screen, they sit at month end trying to reconcile numbers late at night, maybe want to get out or actually get some sleep so they can relax and go into a weekend. It's Friday night. Like that type of feeling of having been there and sat there really transcends the whole product and communication and messaging. And so that very naively was sort of the approach we took of like, let's go with these people that really understand the pain point inside out. The one thing I over-indexed as a founder, and there was a mistake, was betting on individuals that understand the core customer and the core customer only, with the premise of you can learn anything and everything if you put your mind to it. I think what I under-indexed on as a founder, that there is a clear time horizon and timestamp on this, you can learn anything and everything. And so while in some cases it's worked out extremely well, where people with core accounting domain expertise and areas of customer empathy that is unmatched have perfectly retrained into product, customer success, and a bunch of other functions in the organization, I have had individuals that joined the team that had all the right prerequisites on the customer empathy and understanding the domain, but weren't fast enough, frankly, at ramping up on some of the technical aspects of the job, like how to write a good cold outbound email and what tools to use there. I thought it was hard for them to succeed in sort of a short period of time that's required here at Rillet for you to ramp up. Timeline here for sort of the risk we took, it was in the end probably cost 3 months or so of company life cycle, because you start a hiring process, you look for someone, cycle through a few candidates and find the right person. If you haven't calibrated what you're looking for and kind of, in my case, buffered enough value for the fact that they do need some technical expertise on some of these sort of more functional areas around being a BDR, for example, and doing some of the outbound work and tests, that probably costs all up, 3 months, because at the end of the day, it takes you a couple of weeks to find a person. Sometimes for more difficult roles, it's even 2 to 3 months just to find the right person, which is valuable as a sort of fast growing company. What I see a lot of my friends do, founder friends, is they hire very much for functional domain expertise. So the alternative would have been to get a PM from a hot fintech company, I don't know, Coinbase or Stripe or some of these names, and put them in seats there versus the underlying users of the platform. And the same applies to other areas of domain as well, on like AEs and product marketing managers and so forth, which in accounting is interesting because most accountants that grow up in the profession are really deep users of platforms and understand the pain points inside out, have nothing to do with engineering, product management, all these type of functions. I caution founders generally against committee hiring. It's sort of the easiest approach to hiring, frankly. You have your funnel of candidates, you hire them, and then you have them run through the organization, build a committee, and people have their yes and no's and strong yeses and weak yeses, whatever the grading may be. What you really need is, in a stage of building the company, is people that are exceptionally good at one or two things, and that's it. They need to be good enough at teamwork, communication. Like, it's really important, otherwise it's detrimental to the team. But at the end of the day, you just need either a brilliant creative for certain, I don't know, marketing, copy, or because if you don't do that, like, you always get sort of the average candidate that everybody kind of likes, which makes it really hard to penetrate the core issues that you're fundamentally hiring for. We have one person that joined us very early on and is kind of running the product function now for Rillet. Again, she's sat in the seat, she's done the work herself as an accountant and has learned all the tools and things on how to best engage with engineers, how to best write up documents on specs of certain features, how to best QA. Has kind of learned that all on the job here, just by sheer sort of willpower and obviously intelligence to really learn that quickly. And I'm really proud of that because she's kind of set the standard here and gold standard that any person can kind of do anything at Rillet with enough support and, again, natural inclination if you give folks time. And that also led us, interestingly, she leads that product function now. And at the same time, because our engineers never had a traditional product manager to go basically tied by the hip for them, they in turn had to learn a lot more about the user themselves. Because in the early days of Rillet, we had a product manager that had all the expertise and knowledge on how our users would want to use the product and perhaps felt the pains firsthand. And then the engineers had to bridge a little bit the product management with traditional functions there on speccing these things out. And in that process, gotten a lot closer to our customers. So it's gotten a weird side effect out of it, actually, where our engineers are really customer oriented now, just because they had to in the early days to bridge that gap a little bit and be much closer to the proxy customer, which was their PM. But two other people here, one of them, our head of finance, that also does a lot of our LinkedIn content now. He's very deep on the domain in terms of accounting and finance, but is also a brilliant writer and creative. So has really helped us shape some of the content and narrative around the company in a very authentic way, which I'm really proud of. And then the third example that we have is someone in customer success who's also been an ex-auditor and like really deep domain expertise, but just has a real knack for helping customers, loves the interactions with customers, is really skilled at absorbing all their feedback and sort of like translating that back into product management, the wider organization, and helping these customers. And again, that's just someone with a core domain expertise around accounting and audit that was just had a real talent for dealing with interacting with people and helping them through any issues they have. It's a mix of both. So on the one side, you need to have a founder, I think, that is very aware of the individual strengths and weaknesses that people have on a team that are also non-obvious. So having just real empathy and awareness around your team is really important. And then kind of like offering people up the opportunities. Hey, you're really good at that. Like, do you want to try this? Or it may not even be a question. You're just like, I know this person is going to be good. Let me just ask them to do it and see if they shine and kind of thrive as I expect them to. So I think that's one side of the equation. And then equally importantly, the folks that you have on your team, they really need to have the motivation and drive to go do that and break out of their like little shell and like core straight. And what I had the fortune of working with my team is like some of these people have that innate drive and hunger and curiosity. So they kind of made it really easy for me to give them more tasks that are maybe outside of their realm. And I think you need both. And I would actually argue upon reflection that the team member is actually even slightly more important because they do a lot of that work of the retraining, reskilling, learning, while you give them just the opportunity and guidance in the process. In terms of just raw hours is actually more on the individual that will be part of your team being reskilled. But you really need both to do that. And that's where sort of the magic happens in my mind. So there are two things I remember very vividly. So number one, there was a lot of positive feedback coming. People are very savvy or gracious as well. Like if someone is good or is doing well for them or had a positive interaction, a lot of people will feed it back. And it's just half a sentence somewhere like, hey, by the way, this was great or that was great. So you get like early indication of success that way, just by social proof, basically, where people that hadn't had interactions, first early results. So like in this example that we had here around product research calls, like the person was great. I spoke to your person X today. The person was great. Thank you. It was a great interaction. So I think that's one thing where you can pick up data points quick, because as a founder, you need to pick up data points quick. Like it's easy to take database decisions. The hard part is how do you get the data fast and approximate it enough so you trust in it. So that's one good way of doing it. And then the other way is, I think as a founder, and coming back to sort of founder intuition, you kind of know what a good work product looks like. You've lived and breathed the company. You helped build it from the ground up. You know where the quality bar is. You know where the maximum is. You know where the maximum is despite the constraints of resources you have. And like it's a full sliding scale. And I think trusting your intuition and gut around that of like, okay, I would have done the same thing as a founder with maximum amount of context on the business and gotten to that result. Has that person gotten a better result or not? There's a very good litmus test, also early days, where you can just subjectively judge the outcome. There's two things as a founder you need to do after you've identified sort of the talent and okay, I want to bet on this person in this regard. So number one, very tactically, you need to give that person a lot of support. Less in the sort of parental way of like, cheering them on all the time and like, yeah, this is great. And like, you can do slightly better next time. And blah, blah. So more in the sort of like, just like genuine support of like, if something is not great, we'll talk about it, but I from the bottom of my heart, will try and make you successful in this new role. So very tactically, how to lead a good user research interview for a person that is new to product, has never designed or built a product. Sure, we can talk about the process, but like, let's do these first calls together. Observe me as a founder. I also had to learn this, like, what type of questions do I ask? How do I ask the questions? How do you let the other person that you're interviewing for the feedback on the Figma prototypes or whatever you're showing them, how do you give them maximum airtime so you can just have them ramble on and on and on, and then kind of tease out the right pieces. And that requires a bit of training, and it's high pressure moments for this person, right? At the time, you only have maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes with a prospective user or someone that gives you their time. And so I did it first, we did it together, and then I started taking a back seat, and like whenever it went left or right a little too much, I kind of steered against. But at the end of the day, as a founder, just put in the actual time of doing meetings together, do the training live together. And then if the person is talented, which in this case, it was an absolute no-brainer, the person will adopt immediately. And you see the iteration and know as a founder, okay, whatever time I spend here is very well invested, and the person will eventually do it better than yourself over time. So that's sort of one, I think, really tactical thing you need to really spend your own time teaching the calls. And the other thing that you always need to have a viewpoint on as a founder is, what is the next project I can pull that person in? So if they're hungry, if they're fast, if they have a really steep slope, keep an eye and scout for net new projects that constantly push their boundaries a little bit as well. So as a start, there's so much going around, it's easy to find work, but you also need to kind of sequence it a little bit. And like, it's an active job to fill the pipeline as you're training that person up with a net new function. As a founder, when you start a company, you have an idea. There's a whole school around lean startup, fast MVPs. What is that most scoped down version that you can build? And while I fundamentally fully subscribe to that, and this is how we've built the company as well on many fronts, the underlying objective of what you're trying to build and achieve should not be lost in this whole like jungle of like advice around like, take as many shortcuts as you can to get to a first sort of valuable result. So for us, very tactically at Rillet, we built a platform from the ground up. The advice from every VC, every founder is like, build a wedge point solution first, don't build a platform out of the gate. You guys at Rippling have actually also defeated that wisdom a little bit, frankly. Very much apply the same thing here to Rillet, because the value proposition is really the end-to-end product. So I just wanted to caution folks that have large visions for really revolutionary products that could fundamentally change a whole industry, that do require a platform approach potentially out of the gate, not throw that out of the window too fast, because that may actually be the only solution that works for the end user. So if you have strong conviction there, scope that platform down, but don't try and like just go with a wedge product, because that's what everybody tells you.